Hello and welcome to Destination Draft Day, your one-stop spot for all things NFL, college football, and NFL draft. Just one sec, sending out the links here, so do not be distracted by me looking at my phone. But we are here. Nick is back. The gang is back together. First, before we dive into everything that we have to talk about today, and there's plenty, Nick, how was your vacation?
My vacation was nice. The bad part was the delayed flights coming and going, and being back home is not too great. But that's how it is. How was your trip out to Arizona?
Yeah, it's great to see family. Seeing my brother all the time is nice. And then he has a kid, so it's great to see her as well. And, it's good to always see family and really exciting to be able to have that opportunity to kind of get out there and really see them consistently.
What's also exciting is that we have now officially been doing this show for 1 year. So you should give yourself a round of applause, Michael, because you've been carrying us as of late. But yeah, we started with the Landry Football Networks last August 21st, I believe. And here we are. So thank you to Chris for the opportunity. And we're expecting things to heat up again once the NFL season kicks off really shortly. But you had a whole year of seeing Michael do what he does best, just get you ready for the draft, ranking the rookies and whatnot. And great job in the past year, Michael, and many more to come. But your thoughts on the first year of the show?
Yeah, I'm shocked that we were able to make it a whole year without someone just getting us off the air, paying us to quit the show. But I love doing this stuff, and even throughout my career, wherever it takes me, I'm hoping that I can continue to do draft work, whether it's with LandryFootball.com or whatever happens. And the fact that we've been able to go for a year and not really hit any dry spots from what I feel like, it's super thrilling. And I hope we get another year and just continue to build the brand of Destination Draft Day, continue to grow our audience, continue to get more interaction from some great fans. And, it's just been really fun for me.
Yeah, we want to thank all of our commenters over the past year, all of our special guests, including Joe and Bailey and of course, Brian, who was incredible for us last football season, joining us to get ready for the college football games of the week, and all of our other guests as well. So we appreciate everybody for joining us and coming along with the ride. And the show doesn't stop here, so we will continue on. And we are in the middle here. Basically, we're past the midpoint of the preseason now because there's only 3 weeks. Week 2 games happen this weekend. Not many starters playing, so we'll see if traditionally the week 3 game is where you see a lot of starters play, but this is the last game, so maybe that's not going to be the case this year. Hard to see how it's going to play out. We never had a 3-game preseason before. Michael, any general takeaways from this preseason so far?
Yeah, I mean, the rookie QBs are as good as advertised. Even guys like Mac Jones, who's maybe viewed as the guy under for that tier of 4 QBs at the top. We've seen a lot of impressive stuff, and Zach Wilson looked great. I know there was a lot of talk about him potentially being a little slower out the gates coming from a smaller school. All these QBs have shown plenty of flashes. Yes, there's going to be some struggles both in the preseason and whenever they officially take over for their teams. But, it's just been really as good as advertised, and I'm really excited to see what happens with the remainder of these rookies, especially when we get into the regular season.
And speaking of QBs, Kyle Trask looking impressive. He had a lot of playing time. I've seen a lot of tweets about him during the game. He's in a good spot, Michael, that's for sure. He can develop. He's learning from the best. And who knows, maybe 3-4 years from now, Kyle Trask potentially gets a chance to start in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, Brady's probably got another 10 years, so he's going to have to go somewhere else. But Kyle Trask definitely off to a good start. And, if Bruce Arians believes in you, then that's a good sign already. So definitely off to the right start for his NFL career.
You mentioned the Jets. Wilson's looking good. Just 3 weeks ago, everyone's saying, oh, this guy was a bust. He's looking bad in practice. No, this guy is legit. He's going to be good as long as the organization doesn't kill him like they do usually with quarterbacks. But Carl Lawson, he's out for the year. It's a big loss for the Jets. And Gerard Davis, he's going to be out till week 6. That's 2 big pass rushers there. Not great. We're getting a lot of injuries so far in the preseason as well. So it's a lot of touch and go here with the conditioning of guys, and there's really not much pad contact going on. Dak Prescott looks to be on target to start week 1 in the Cowboys opening week loss to the Bucs. And Saquon Barkley looks like he's going to perhaps participate in some joint practices this week between the Patriots and the Giants. You got to wonder, Michael, if it's best to have him out there going against another team for the first time getting hit in over a year almost.
Yeah, you want to keep him healthy, but at the same time, it is important that these guys kind of get acclimated to it, especially in a practice setting. I assume for the most part, it's not going to be going as hard as games. There's going to be some big hits, but at the same time, just consistency, you're not going to be getting plummeted like you usually would in a game. So I think it's necessary, especially if they probably don't want to run too heavy in the preseason, but you still want them to be balling once week 1 comes.
Yeah, and obviously Judge and Belichick have a good relationship, so perhaps there won't be too many issues. As far as injuries goes, Carson Wentz was back in practice today. So that's a good news for the Colts, who you thought, you may be losing Wentz here for 10 weeks or so. It's gonna be big thing for them to have him in there. Again, I don't really know what to expect from Wentz this year. He was really bad last year, hence why he got benched and ultimately was traded. What do you expect from Wentz here? Do you think he's going to return to his form that he had when Frank Reich was his offensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think we're going to see some big things out of Wentz. I think, probably never the MVP season that Wentz put up in Philadelphia while Frank Reich was his offensive coordinator, but I do think we're going to see a nice bounce back from him. I think Frank Reich deserves all the credit in the world for how well he's done with the QBs that he's had. I think Rivers was definitely a little bit washed, but because he was a legend prior to that season, he was it was underrated just how much work Frank Reich did. And I think with Wentz coming in, the talent, the age is there. I think now it's just the chance to really turn him around. And I think this will kind of put the staple on Frank Reich as a top 5 head coach in the NFL.
All right, now to the Patriots. Everyone's going goo goo gaga over Mac Jones, doing well against some 3rd and 4th stringers. But Cam Newton's looked good too, Michael. But now Cam Newton's going to be out for 5 days at least because he got a COVID test outside of the team. And also, I think I saw N'Keal Harry is going to be out for at least 4 weeks. Kind of banking on him big time. Hunter Henry's had some injuries as well. Any worry there that these offensive guys are not getting enough reps here for what looks like is going to be the week 1 starters with Newton there?
No, I mean, the injuries are definitely concerning for any team, but at the same time, the Patriots have kind of spent all offseason investing in making this roster filled with talent. So personally, I don't feel super worried. I know definitely want all the starters to be healthy, definitely want the best possible lineup out there, but I think for the most part, things should be all right.
Absolutely. Now, the other thing I wanted to discuss, which I don't think is really getting discussed enough, which is going to be, is Jameis Winston actually going to be the starter for the Saints? Looks like it's a kind of an open competition still here. Peyton's not really committing to either guy, other than the fact that Winston's been starting the preseason games. What are you expecting to happen between now and the first week of the season for the Saints?
Yeah, so I actually talked about this on Johnny VTV between who would start between Taysom and Jameis Winston. And I said I think both are going to start. I think that Jameis is going to be the starting QB, and Taysom's going to line up out wide and get a lot of receiver reps, probably get some times where he's passing the ball plenty. But, yeah, I mean, we know that Taysom Hill's versatility is super valued by Sean Payton. And right now, with Michael Thomas out, with everyone already being kind of concerned about the wide receiver unit there in New Orleans, I think Taysom Hill's going to get a lot of snaps all over the field, and hopefully alleviate some of that pain.
I think you're absolutely right. They're both going to play. They should definitely get another QB there in the room, another backup, just in case somebody gets injured. I think that'd be important. And lastly, as far as our news wrap-up is concerned here, Michael, just a little update on Larry Fitzgerald, who is unsigned at this point. He recently did an interview with Jim Gray on SiriusXM. Jim Gray, most known for interviewing LeBron James during the decision on ESPN. So I'll read the transcript here for you for one quote here. So Jim Gray said, "So Larry, are you going to be a radio broadcaster or will you be back out on the field?" And Larry Fitzgerald's response was, "For now, I'll be a radio broadcaster. Jim, to be honest with you, I just don't have the urge to play right now. I don't know how I'll feel in September, October, November going forward, but I just don't have the urge. I think I have to be respectful of that. Football is not one of those games you want to walk out there and play and not be fully engaged and ready to prepare and do the things necessary that you need to do." So it sounds like a soft retirement here, but to me, I ultimately think it's just that Fitzgerald was not offered a contract that he deemed worthy of his value, and that's why he has decided at this point not to play.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably a mix of all of it. I think the Cardinals weren't super gung-ho on bringing him back, and Larry Fitzgerald probably didn't want to go play for another team, and I don't know how much interest there was regardless of if he did or didn't. But at the same time, if you're not 100% in on it, if the team that you want to play for isn't 100% in on you, then you might kind of just need to just step to the side and call it a career. And I know that for a lot of people, they probably wanted to see Larry Fitzgerald kind of go out on a sort of goodbye tour type of way where it was much more known so they could really pull or pay their full respects. When he left the field, they, applauded him for the last time, whatever. But that's just the reality of football. Sometimes it ends a little more sudden than you'd like. And while Larry Fitzgerald had a very long career, it was kind of a sudden end and maybe not fitting for a legend like himself. But I don't think that really changes anything about his career and really changes the idea that everyone knows this guy was worthy of all the praise that he got.
Yeah, no doubt about it. One of the best wide receivers of all time. The game won't be the same without him, but he surpassed the career expectations for a wide receiver as far as the lasting of a career. Getting double digits in your career as a wide receiver, unheard of now these days.
Absolutely. And there was a time, I don't know how factual it was, but there was just this stat line that was always brought up whenever it was Larry Fitzgerald, the more tackles than drops despite being a wide receiver. And I think that just goes to show how incredible he is. Really just one of the more sure-handed guys. Was never the fastest out there. Was never, this like pure athletic specimen or anything, but he was just able to get it done consistently. No matter who was in Arizona, you could count on Larry Fitzgerald to have a great season, even for some of the years where the QB play was just up in the air and completely, headache-inducing. He was able to put together some great seasons. So congratulations to Larry Fitzgerald. If this is the end, then it's a great career and a great way to go out.
Yeah, I think we'll see him on the Bucs win a Super Bowl this year at some point.
Wouldn't surprise me. They need like one more guy just to go into the postseason. They bring in Fitz. Would be nice.
I think it would. I think it'd be a good fit.
Well, there's some corners that probably didn't love going against Fitz every Sunday, and today we're going to be talking about some corners that really are going to have some great careers in my mind. There are plenty of corners in this draft class, and if you are looking for one in terms of just you like the position, just you like looking at all prospects, or your team is desperately in need of one, then this cornerback class is definitely one that you want to dive into. We're going to start off with 5 sleepers that I think could potentially rise up boards as we get closer to the draft. Right now, you see a lot of first-round mocks, and these guys aren't really brought up in the conversation, but they are definitely worth talking about. Number 1, we're going to be talking about Joey Porter Jr., a guy that I think will be a first-round player. Now, if the name strikes you as familiar, yes, he's the son of Joey Porter, Steelers legend. Automatically that kind of makes me think he could very easily be the pick there for when Pittsburgh is on the clock. But Joey Porter Jr. has tremendous length, tremendous athleticism, moves extremely well. He is someone that I think is going to be in for a breakout season. And, I've kind of talked about it each show. with these Big Ten and Pac-12 guys. The reason that I think we kind of haven't seen this hype for him is because he was a freshman redshirt playing in his first year of like major play time last year, and the season was short. Penn State only got in 9 games last year, sorry, but still just not a lot of time to really fully prove yourself. And even in that time, I was very impressed with Joey Porter Jr. 4 pass deflections, 33 tackles, even got a sack in there. So maybe he's an edge rusher at heart. Who knows? But Joey Porter Jr. moves around the field extremely well. Great secondary there in Penn State, one of the better ones in college football. But Joey Porter Jr., I think, has the most star talent out of anyone in that group. Next guy we're going to talk about is Nehemiah Pritchett. And this is someone that is another guy that was kind of young in his first year of major play time. Started 11 games for the Auburn Tigers as a sophomore, going to be entering his true junior season. 25 tackles, 1 interception, 10 pass deflections, offers a tremendous frame, 6'1", 180 pounds, definitely wants to add some weight, but I think there's plenty of potential here for him to really fly up boards as we get closer to the draft. And, I'm not here to really just tear down some of these prospects, but I think as we get closer to the draft, a lot of these guys that are currently being viewed as consensus top corners are going to kind of fall out. Again, I'm not trying to really tear these guys down, but someone like a Sevyn Banks, someone like Josh Jobe, I think these are guys that maybe are a little bit pushed up because we got to see them in the playoffs because they play for great programs like Auburn and Alabama. So really, I think there's plenty of openings in this cornerback class to move up. And guys like Pritchett, guys like Porter Jr., I think absolutely could. Number 3, we're going to talk about Malik Dunlap, a hard-hitting corner with tremendous size. Transferred to Texas Tech, was a member of the North Carolina State Wolfpack. And if you're looking for a big outside corner, this guy is 6'4", 220 pounds. We could be talking about him making a move to free safety or strong safety potentially at that next level. He is a stud at the cornerback spot. And, I think he's someone that's going to be used as a versatile defender no matter what. Really just has it all in terms of what you could ask for from frame. And, Texas Tech has built up their defense with transfers, and I think this is probably going to be one of the more crucial pieces for that unit. Like I said, great frame, but also he was making plays. He had 6 pass deflections, 20 tackles, hard hitter. I think he's someone that's really going to be a stud. In his freshman redshirt year, he had 8 pass deflections. So really just someone that I think is going to get all over the field. And, in a passing league like Texas or like the Big 12, where Texas Tech is going to have plenty of opportunities to go against some great passing offenses, I think Malik Dunlap could really prove his ball skills and prove his ability to really kind of fly up boards. Next guy we're going to talk about is Cam Taylor-Britt, a stud for the Nebraska Cornhuskers. Now, real quick, I just want to say, just because, he may not be able to dominate with the roster at hand, Cam Taylor-Britt is still one of my favorite guys in this class. 2 interceptions in the past 2 seasons, 4 pass deflections in the past 2 seasons. Just both, he had 2 and 4. So not saying he had 2 over the course of 2 years, but really just a stud all around. Great frame at 6 foot, 200 pounds, and 28 tackles. Probably the strength of this Nebraska defense. They have some solid linebackers, but I think Cam Taylor is the best player on this entire Nebraska roster. And I think he's really someone that could realistically be drafted. Big fan of his game. And I think that, I have this thing where I love guys that are kind of surrounded by lacking talent if they're able to stand out. And I think Cam Taylor-Britt kind of does that. And I'm really excited to see what he does in his hopefully last year at Nebraska. Next up, we're talking about Garrett Williams out of Syracuse. Now, this was an interesting situation because, Trill Williams with Ifeatu Melifonwu, there's ways for Garrett Williams to really kind of get buried in the depth chart. But really, he was able to establish himself to where Trill Williams was pushed inside or to safety. Andre Cisco got a lot of attention, but he sadly tore his ACL. But Garrett Williams, the young guy in a group that maybe had all 3 guys getting attention at one point, and he was able to stand out. 2 interceptions, 9 pass deflections, a sack, 3 tackles for loss, 64 tackles overall, has inside-outside capability, stands 5'11", 185 pounds is the way he's listed at. I think that he is going to be someone that really starts to garner attention. Big question mark is, will he declare? Personally, I think there's a very likely a chance that he stays. Have a friend that talked to his dad and said he was going to stay all 4 years. Very possible, but Garrett Williams is someone that I think is a stud at the cornerback spot. And, if the draft interest is there, we could very well see him declare and decide to go to the NFL, and I think he'll do very well in that process. From these 5 sleepers, we're going to see a lot of overlap into my top 10, but at number 10, we're talking about Trent McDuffie, the cornerback out of Washington. Washington just seems to consistently churn out great defensive backs, and this year's no different. I really love Trent McDuffie. I think he's a very solid zone corner. Him and Kyler Gordon are really fun defensive backs for this team. 5'11", 190 pounds. I think he moves pretty well, pretty consistent tackler. And, I'm a big fan of what Washington does. Jimmy Lake is one of my favorite head coaches in college football. And, last year with just 4 games for Trent McDuffie, he was able to get an interception, 14 tackles, and even force a fumble. I think this is someone that is going to be a safe pick, someone that maybe goes round 3, round 4, but just sticks around on the roster for a long time, can find his way into a starting rotation pretty easily. And, whoever gets this guy is going to be very happy to have him. That's for sure. Number 9, we're talking about Nehemiah Pritchett. Talked about him a little bit earlier, so there's not a lot to say further on the subject, but Auburn is definitely going to be in for an interesting situation. Roger McCreary is a stud. Smoke Monday is one of my favorite safeties in this class. They have some great pieces in the linebacker and front 7 unit as a whole. If that offense can get going, then Auburn's going to be very dangerous this year. Nehemiah Pritchett, Roger McCreary going to lead the way for that secondary. At number 8, we're going with a slot corner, and if this guy was 4 inches taller, he would be probably my cornerback 1, and he would still only be 5'11". That's the issue here. How
tall is he?
He's listed at 5'9", but I think he's a little shorter. I think he's probably like 5'8", and it's tough. But he's a stud. He's playing outside corner right now for TCU. He's extremely smart, breaks on the ball extremely well, moves around the field well. I think this is someone that is going to find a way to make it work at the NFL level. This is someone that makes it work at the college level despite his smaller stature, and he makes it work so well that I think at the NFL level, despite maybe having to move inside, despite maybe having to adjust for even bigger guys, he's going to make it work. He's going to find a way to be a star slot corner. But, with the size limitations, I have to keep him a little bit further back. He would fly up here if you're a little bit taller. Number 7. We got Garrett Williams. Again, talked about him a little bit earlier, but Syracuse is definitely going to need to rely on him more than anyone in the secondary because of all the pieces that they've lost. If Garrett Williams can really prove himself to be a star player while the rest of this secondary kind of gets it going, then I think we could be talking about this guy as a potential first, second round top player that really could fly up boards. Number 6, we're talking about Kaiir Elam, someone that I think is getting a lot of love in terms of consensus opinions, and I think it's justified. I think he has great frame, great size, length, everything you kind of want in a corner. Moves well, 6'2", 193, and probably runs in the 4.4s, high 4.4s. He's not just dusting everyone, but I think he's still very fast. 2 interceptions last year, 11 pass deflections, uses his frame and length to really get into the ball window and close it out. Really impressed with his play. Florida obviously has a history of turning out great corners, and I think Kaiir Elam is going to be another name to add to the list after some time. At number 5, we got Mikhail Wright, the corner out of Oregon. They put up some great corners as well. Troy Graham is someone that I really liked. Diamador Lenore got some love. Javon Holland was kind of rotating between safety and corner. Mikhail Wright, though, might be the best of that entire unit. 9 pass deflections last year in just 7 games, 27 tackles. Didn't get targeted a lot because, he's a stud. He really kept things quiet. And out of the cornerback class, you want a quiet guy. You want someone that's not getting noticed very often because they just refuse to target him. Probably a little small than you'd like, 5'11", 5'10", 180 pounds, but he moves well. He's played strong against the run. He's a very consistent tackler. I think this is someone that kind of fits that Denzel Ward kind of mold. Whether or not he's going to play to that Denzel Ward level, especially at the NFL level, who knows? But Mykhail Wright is someone that I think could very easily be in that first-round discussion come draft day. At number 4, we're talking about Joey Porter Jr. Again, talked about him earlier. This is someone that I think is going to be a stud. Penn State is, filled in the secondary. Guys like Brisker, guys like Castro Fields. But Joey Porter, I think, has the most star power. I think he's going to be a first-round pick. A little bit bold right now to call it, but I genuinely think he's going to be going in that range. And, that length and movement ability is something already, but get him with a good corner group, and I think he's going to really just flourish on the outside. At number 3, we got Ahmad Gardner, one of the already appreciated corners in this class, and I think it's definitely justified. An absolute stud whenever it comes to just technique, ability, length. He definitely needs to add a little weight to his frame. I think he's a little thin, but 6'2", 185 probably in his weight. Just consistent. And I think consistency is what you most want out of your corners, especially when the consistency is at a high level. Cincinnati is going to really – I'm just noticing that the number 2 slot is number 3 again, so apologies for that. That's not intentional. Number 2 is number 2, but back to Ahmad Gardner. He does it all for Cincinnati. Great secondary there. 0 touchdowns allowed on his record, so just an absolute stud. And I think Gardner is going to be someone that sticks around in the top of this corner class. At number 2, we got Andrew Booth Jr. out of Clemson. Kind of played in a rotational role for the Clemson Tigers last year. Going to be interesting to see what happens with him really holding down the fort as the main corner in this class. 6 foot, 195 pounds, could add a little weight, but I think the frame is perfectly fine as it is. Great potential. I think he's an absolute stud. Again, in a rotational role, but he was able to produce for the Clemson Tigers last year. Just in terms of when he was on the field, he was making plays. 2 interceptions, 4 pass deflections, a fumble recovery for a touchdown, 3 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 27 tackles in full. This guy's got everything you could want out of a corner, and I think, in the full-time role, we're going to get to see a lot and maybe have some additional questions answered. But right now, I don't see how this guy doesn't continue to stay atop the class and doesn't continue to really be an established name for the draft and go in the first round. And then number 1, you've all probably heard of him, even if you don't follow the draft that closely. Derek Stingley Jr. is an absolute stud. I know there's some question marks about last year because there was some injuries that he was dealing with. There's still some technique that needs to be fixed up, but his ability to move all over the field, his ability to move as fluidly as he does, his size, his physicality, I think he's going to really just establish himself in this final year as the top corner of the class. 5 pass deflections last year in 7 games as a true freshman. He had 15 pass deflections, 6 interceptions. You don't want to buy in too hard on just, stats like that, but he's a stud. 6'1", 195 pounds is listed measurements. I think that, perfect frame already. Could add a little weight if you want, but nothing that you're really rushing to do. I get the concerns. I think there's still some refinement to his game that's needed, but everything we've seen out of him is still very much just everything you'd want out of a corner. And, coaches are going to want that. I'm very much still sold on him regardless. So I'm in on Derek Stingley, and he's my number 1 corner for sure.
All right, Michael, looking at this list here, you already said Hodges Tomlinson. He's hurt by his height, so he'd be, if he was taller, he'd be higher on the list. But other than him here, who from the bottom row has the best chance to crack the top 2, top 3 as far as the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, Kaiir Elam is kind of viewed that way in terms of consensus opinions. He's in at least that top 4, top 5 ranking. Personally, for me, I think Garrett Williams and Nehemiah Pritchett are the high upside guys here. Still very young players that I think have plenty of potential, have shown a lot in terms of production already. I think that there's just so much that they have to offer. Nehemiah Pritchett with his great length and frame, Garrett Williams just already with his production and versatility. Both have so much that they can do that can really bump them up boards pretty easily. And could very well get this to where when we're talking about this in March, April, these guys are safe locks to be first-round picks.
Could be big for them. What's interesting here is you got one guy who is not in a Power 5 school, Ahmad Garner. He's still ranked him pretty high at number 3. If he was in another conference, would that hurt him or help him?
Oh, I think it'd help. He's got the talent to where I don't think going against better competition exposes him. Really just absolute beast at the position, and I'm a huge fan of him. I'd love to see him, go somewhere where he can really compete against the top talents of the world, whatever. But, I think even at the Cincinnati level of the American Athletic Conference, he's going to have plenty of chance to prove himself.
All right, and then just to finish off fair with the guy you started with, which would be Joey Porter Jr., tremendous talent. I think his name has helped him, but I think his talent speaks for himself. He's a very different type of player than his father, of course. His father was a linebacker. But Joey Porter Jr., he's got a great chance to ascend this list, in my opinion, just because the Big Ten is going to be stacked this year as far as talent is concerned. So if he puts up a big season, I think that's going to help him big time. Whereas, if Booth struggles, perhaps then, if he's doing this against the weaker ACC, something like that. Stingley Jr. looks like he's going to be the top guy. He's playing the SEC, so don't think that is going to hurt him at all whatsoever.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's worth talking about some of these other corners. It's definitely a talented class. Josh Jobe, Tywone Mullen, Avery Young out of Rutgers, Tariq Castro Fields, we talked about a little bit whenever we were talking about Joey Porter. Even Sevyn Banks and Darion Kendrick, they have plenty of potential to prove me wrong and get into this top 10. And for a lot of consensus, they're in the top 10 already. I think this group is filled with potential talent and just stars all over. And if you're looking for a corner, like I said earlier in this episode, there's plenty of options.
No doubt about it.
Well, it was a little bit of a shorter episode, but great to talk about the cornerbacks. Great to get Nick back on the show as well. We are going to be back on Friday to talk about the top safeties in this class, talk about the beginning of college football. It happens this Saturday. Absolutely thrilled for it. We are excited. Can't contain any of the excitement. What
are you most looking forward to this weekend?
I'm looking for that first game. I really want to see what happens between Illinois and Nebraska. I also want to see what happens with UCLA in their season opener. Plenty of potential there, and I've been hyping them up to win the Pac-12. If they come out flat, then I'm just going to be looking like an idiot. Maybe won't even show up on Friday. Next Monday.
So we got some games during the week here, of course. What is there any? What conference is usually starting? It's usually the Sub Bowl divisions are usually start early, but obviously we got some games this weekend. I think there are some games during the week though as well. Don't really have those in front of me here, but
for FBS it all starts on this Saturday, the 28th. Okay. So we'll be back on that Monday to talk about it. But this Friday, got safety talk, got some previews for some of the games. And, until then, hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you.